The rain fell in relentless sheets, so thick and slanted it seemed to slice through the world. Wind clawed at the pines along the mountainside, bending them like fragile bones, their tops disappearing into the gray haze. Every crash of thunder shook the earth and made the air shiver as if the sky itself were tearing open. Visibility was almost non-existent, the headlights of a lone car barely piercing the mist that rolled over the narrow, winding road. Inside the vehicle, Elias Rowan gripped the steering wheel with a white-knuckled intensity. His hands trembled, not from the cold, nor entirely from the storm, but from the anticipation and fear that had been building within him for years. He was 32 now, a man whose body bore the evidence of stress, and whose face had grown a hardness that came from surviving childhoods one did not choose. He hadn't driven this road since he was a boy, yet tonight, he was drawn back here by something he didn't yet fully understand. And then, as a flash of lightning tore across the sky, he saw it, Blackridge House. Perched atop the ridge, the house loomed over the road, its jagged roof cutting into the storm-darkened sky. Its windows were blind and opaque, and its walls seemed less like walls of shelter and more like a waiting, patient watcher. There was something in the air, something in the way the rain battered the structure, that made it feel alive, expectant, almost sentient. Elias exhaled slowly, the exhale carrying the weight of years of avoidance. Just one night, he whispered to himself, as if repeating a mantra could grant him courage. He turned off the engine, and the sudden silence was deafening. Only the storm answered him, hammering rain and wind against the car. Gathering his coat and bag, he stepped out into the tempest, each movement deliberate, each step toward the house heavy with dread. The front door groaned on its hinges as Elias pushed it open, and cold, damp air rushed in to greet him. It smelled of rainwater-soaked wood, dust, and something older, memories long sealed away, mingled with the faint, lingering scent of his grandmother's perfume. Inside, the house was cavernous. The wooden floorboards creaked under his boots. Stairs split from the foyer in two directions, disappearing into darkness, and faded family portraits hung on the walls, their stern eyes seeming to follow his every move. Elias paused, letting the echo of his entrance die away, as if listening to the house's sigh. This was his grandmother's house. Abandoned for 15 years, it had been sold, resold, and finally left empty. He had returned because his job demanded it. As a structural engineer, he was tasked with inspecting the property after reports of landslide damage. But beneath the official reason, something deeper had called him home: memories, unresolved feelings, and the final threads of childhood loss. He set his bag down carefully, reluctant to break the fragile stillness of the house. The banister felt familiar beneath his fingertips, smooth and worn by decades of human contact. For a fleeting moment, a memory surfaced: laughter, the sound of a woman calling his name softly, playfully, from somewhere just beyond sight. Then it vanished, leaving a hollow ache behind. The lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. Elias stiffened. The living room was frozen in time, the fireplace cold, the furniture draped under white sheets that made the room look like a tomb of forgotten lives. Elias lit a lantern, the warm glow pushing back the darkness but not fully. Rain battered the windows in violent rhythms, each impact resonating like a drumbeat in the quiet room. Then, a sudden thump echoed from upstairs. Elias froze, ears straining. Old house noises, he told himself. The wind, the storm, his own nerves. But then he heard it again, softer this time, footsteps, deliberate, and yet impossibly light. The lantern trembled in his grip. Hello. His voice was low, uncertain, almost swallowed by the storm. No answer came. With every instinct screaming at him to flee, he instead took the first step toward the staircase. Each creak of the wood beneath his boots seemed to mock his bravery. Shadows danced across the walls, shapes twisting in the dim lantern light, and the air felt heavier with every step he took upward. The upstairs hallway stretched before him like a narrow tunnel. The wallpaper peeled in curling strips, like old skin that refused to let go. Doors lined both sides, all shut, all holding stories Elias had long tried to forget. His lantern flickered again, sending stuttering light across the floor, and then he stopped. At the end of the hall was a door that had always held a magnetic pull over him, the door to his childhood bedroom. With a breath that shook, he pushed it open. Dust motes floated lazily in the lantern light. Everything was untouched. The small bed, the bookshelf, the crack in the ceiling he had once counted at night to fall asleep, everything frozen in time. Elias swallowed hard. He remembered lying in this bed during storms, his grandmother's comforting presence beside him, telling him stories so he wouldn't be afraid. But one night had changed everything. One night that had shattered his childhood and sent him away. He felt the memory spike in pain, tightening his jaw. Then a sharp, sudden bang shook the house. The door slammed behind him. Darkness swallowed him whole. When the lantern flickered back on, Elias spun around, heart hammering in his chest. The door creaked open slowly, as if pulled by some unseen force. A coldness flooded the room, sinking into his bones. And then he heard it, a voice soft, tired, familiar. "Elias, you finally came back." His knees buckled slightly. "No, this isn't real," he whispered, as fog of cold breath escaped his lips. "You left without saying goodbye." The voice had no anger, only quiet sorrow. "I was a child. You sent me away," Elias replied, his throat tight. "I sent you away to protect you." Lightning flashed, and in the brief illumination, he saw her reflection in the cracked mirror. Older, pale, sad. Then she was gone, leaving the room colder and darker than before. Emotion surged in him, breaking the armor he had built over decades. The house seemed less threatening now, not haunted by malevolence but by unfinished goodbyes, unresolved grief, the weight of words never spoken. Elias began to move through the house with a strange calmness. He no longer felt like an intruder. Each room revealed fragments of memory. The kitchen where hushed arguments had shaped the course of lives, the study where his parents had made decisions that would never include him, the back room where his grandmother had collapsed on the night she died. He understood then that the house was not angry. The storm outside reached its zenith, rain hammering without mercy, thunder rattling the windows and walls. The house groaned as beams shifted, walls trembled, and the truth became undeniable. The house was failing, just as the spirit trapped within it was suffering. Elias felt an odd clarity. He could no longer hide from this place, from the memories, from the loss. The house was demanding a reckoning. In the living room, water seeped through the ceiling, pooling on the floor. Elias stood soaked, trembling, the lantern swinging in his grip. He raised his voice, the first true sound of courage he had uttered in years. "I'm here now." The air grew still. Though unseen, his grandmother's presence filled the space, powerful yet gentle. "You weren't alone. I was just too scared to come back," he whispered. "Then don't be scared anymore," her voice replied, soft but unwavering. The house shuddered violently, like a giant waking from centuries of slumber. Elias knew what he had to do. He turned and ran for the door, the old wood groaning under his weight. A final crack, deep and resonant, sounded behind him, a release of years of tension, grief, and waiting. He stumbled outside, the storm retreating, the first fragile light of dawn breaking through gray clouds. Blackridge House rested against the hill now, partially collapsed, no longer intimidating, no longer looming. Elias stood in the wet grass, breathing in the clean, post-storm air. Something heavy lifted from his chest, a burden he hadn't realized he had carried for decades. The wind softened. The hill, for the first time in memory, felt peaceful. He turned and walked down the road, neither running nor glancing back. Behind him, the house remained silent, finally at rest, and for the first time, Elias felt a sense of closure. The sun climbed higher, glinting off wet leaves and the remnants of the storm. Birds began to stir, hesitant at first, then with confidence. The road wound down the mountainside, leading him back to the life he had postponed. Blackridge House was behind him now, a chapter closed, its secrets revealed, its spirit released. Elias Rowan walked on, carrying both memory and liberation. The storm within him calmed at last,